ANAGALACTIC, bringing you another science presentation in cosmic geometry. We're in the Imaginarity series, and this will be the final lecture before we go on into the Boschkovich series, which will explain the force curve at the inner curve of two infinities, one of which is asymptotic time, the other one is asymptotic space. And as I claimed, we will now unlock the secrets of quantum mechanics and hereby provide a brand new geometry for use in physics, since we're addressing entirely 100% spheric space, all the way from the Bohr atom, the center of the universe, all the way to the cosmological edge, both of which edges are suffering from massive modelitis and theoretization, which is leading nowhere and has locked science in gridlock. Imaginarity concerns the ability to build something in your mind. And what we've been covering is the mathematical definition of imaginarity. Albert Einstein made time an imaginary component in a four linear system solution for gravitational space. It is correct, but that has to be qualified. It's correct as a linear solution. The linear solution is incorrect because it's a spheric phenomenon. The same is true of light propagation. The imaginarity of time is mathematical only. In order to find out what time actually is, we don't want to be philosophizing. It feels like it's linear, and it feels like it has a direction. Both of those statements are true, but they need to be proved geometrically, with a mathematical underpinning which cannot be avoided. The fact that you get from drawing the straight line is that it hits two antipodal infinities. This has a characteristic on the line of dualizing infinity in linear space. That, of course, is incorrect, but it's absolutely necessary to have the line. That gives us two insoluble problems that we did not need to face until we discovered cosmic space. That's quantum space and cosmological space. Those are the two ends of spheric space. The universe does not have an edge, and it does not have a center. I have proved that it has both, and this is how it's done. When you draw the line, you can prove that you have an embedding, unbounded spherical space. That's what infinity means. Now, you have two things that you didn't have in empty space. You have a center, but don't forget, it's a linear center. It's a linear center. It's the center of the line. So while that center, which is often called a point, and we'll get to that in a moment, that's part of the axiomatic sequence, but we don't want to use the line. When you draw the line, you get a linear point at the center, you erase the line, and from the antipodal theorem, we now know we have a center to an unbounded sphere. But remember, the center now that we've erased the line is not the center of the line. That's incredibly important, because the center of the line is zero. That is the problem that has to be solved. That's caused the error of the Big Bang. It's caused the error of the misconstruction of the supermassive black hole. It's led to all kinds of problems in figuring out what quasars and galaxies are, and it's ruined science. Because we're in spherical space now. We were not 100 years ago. We never used spherical space. We only needed lines. And we went through the absolute hell of learning calculus, which is the only way to translate out of spheric space into linear space. I have solved that. We have a new number system, and here's how you get it. It's with a second theorem. The antipodal theorem is that when you draw a line, you make a sphere, with a very important footnote that the line is embedded in the sphere. I've proved more than that. There's a relationship between the sphere and the line, but you cannot know that while they're infinite. You will be finding out that the zero at the center of the line is the infinitesimal with respect to the integral of the line, because the two infinities are plus and minus. That means you use the operator add to get 0. 0 is an infinity. So I trust you know that. Or if you didn't know it, you know it now. So, so we're going to end this in 15 minutes and have a second lecture. This is extraordinarily deep, but you have to start with the axiomatic basis. We must have the linear numbers extractable from the spheric number system. So, now that you have a center and an unbounded edge, the very first step, which nobody has ever been able to address in any rational way, you have to rationalize the infinite edge of the universe. It can't be infinite, so we're going to give it a number. This is my discovery. You give it a number, but now we know that the line uses add. I've proved that the line has one operator, add. That means that multiply is an operator for a different object. I have proven that that is the sphere. And this is the proof. This is called the bootstrap theorem, which is my discovery 2022. You make proportional numbers. These appear to us as fractions in our notational system. These are extraordinarily specific kinds of fractions. One of the components in the fraction must be 1. That is the multiplicative identity. The center of the line is the additive identity. Those are the two identity numbers. 0 is necessary to balance the line so we can use the computable numbers. In fact, machine logic, called binary logic, is a 0-1 logic system on which all of logic is based, certainly in computable form. Therefore, it's linear, and therefore we can't lose it. The number that bounds the unbounded edge of the sphere is infinity over 1, and that's an imaginary number. Extremely important. Remember, this is the Imaginarity series. This is where everything comes together. So I hope you understand that infinity over 1 is exactly the same quantity as infinity, but it is a proportional number. And the universe only uses that kind of number, this kind of number. One of the numbers in the fraction must be 1. The reason for that is when you balance the system, now that you have the infinity of the unbounded edge defined as an imaginary quantity that's larger than any number, you are now forced by the mathematics of the system to define the number at the center, and that number can only be one number. This solves the calculus. It's 1 over infinity. And here comes the hard part. That is now a 2-component number of 2 proportional numbers. That has 4 whole numbers in it. In this case, it's only 2 of those numbers, one of which is imaginary. So infinity over 1 times 1 over infinity is 1. And that's the basis of this space. Exactly as plus infinity and minus infinity add to 0, these two infinities multiply to 1. The number at the center is imaginary. It's 1 over infinity, and that's not 0. But it is imaginary. The number at the center being 1 over infinity and being imaginary cannot be used. And this is why complex numbers fail. They're magical, and they're used exclusively now, again, because we're still in the primitive stage of mathematics. This is the next step in evolution. That word evolution is applied to the only system known to man where evolution does not apply, and that's in DNA transfer. But there is such a thing as evolution, okay? So when you multiply these two numbers together, it produces the number 1, which is balanced between the center and the edge of unbounded spherical space, which we proved is the embedding space from the antipodal theorem. But now we're in the bootstrap theorem, where we use 2 reciprocal numbers to multiply to the center of everything. Is a sphere with a number 1, and that's the right beginning of mathematics. That is the correct beginning of geometry for modern physics. So this is going to change the face of physics. And in the next lecture, I'm going to show you dual imaginary space and then hyperspheric imaginarity, which gives you the key to seeing through time. And you're going to acquire a new form of vision, which I have learned from the neurophysiologists is an onboard system that we've never used. So you're going to learn to see. So the universe, I'm sorry, there's a lot of emotion involved here. We're at a critical phase of science where mysticism and superstition have reasserted their ugly fucking heads. Design is rational. Okay? So, keep looking up and stay tuned. We'll have another lecture today. I have the answers that unlock physics and unlock your mind so that you know the truth and you're not being led around by your nose. Be right back. Stay tuned.